Good morning. You can see that I've always had a flair for fashion. And you can also see that I felt really stifled by the school uniform. So I can understand my kids' chagrin when I'm like, pull that skirt down, because they're at Castellea. So this is incredible. I'm just overwhelmed by the women in this room, and thank you all for joining us. So you see this here. This is the island of Jamaica. We'll talk a little bit about that. I know so many of you, and yet I bet you some of you didn't even know I was an immigrant, but all immigrants come to the United States with a dream. And when my parents came to America, my mother was consumed by this, right? She was gonna how do you make your kid American? How do you make them successful? what do you do? And like all good mothers, she decided that she was gonna feed us into being American. And so she heard about the American breakfast and the breakfast of champion. And so she decided that that's what we were going to have. And so every morning she would get up and she would boil the milk, because we're Jamaican. You can't actually feed your kid something cold. And I know there's another Jamaican in the audience, and that is just not going to happen. You can't feed yourself something cold for breakfast, your kid. So she would boil the milk, and then she would painstakingly pour the cereal and set the table. And then she would go and wake us up. And then we would get ready, and about 20 minutes later, we would sit for a breakfast of warm milk and soggy, disgusting cereal. And we thought, oh my gosh, America sucks. And, poor American children, this is really torture. And so for years, my sister and I were like, gosh, this is just, we hated breakfast. I still hate breakfast. And it wasn't until years later that we had a sleepover with some American cousins who were like, what the hell is this? This is not how you eat cereal. But as you can imagine, I still have flashbacks to cornflakes and all the rest of it. So in any case, I came to the United States as a grammar school kid, not much younger than my children are today, 11 and 13, and I have two girls. Many of you know them. And like most immigrant children, our move to America was motivated by our parents, right, and their dreams. Their dream for more, but most importantly, their dream that their children would have the opportunity to dream for themselves. And that's really what motivated them. When my parents immigrated from Jamaica, they were leaving a country where it was fraught with political uncertainty and fearfully close to communist Cuba. This was sort of the early 80s, late 70s. And as a child, when I asked my father, why did you leave Jamaica? Why did you come to America? He would say, because you were girl children, because I had girl children. And again, if there are any Caribbean people in the audience, you know that they speak in these parables, and you're sort of oh, what the hell? So, he said, you were girl children, and I sort of had no concept what he meant. And it took becoming an adult, going to the very male Dartmouth, going to the very male medical school, and Stanford was better than most, and then choosing a very male subspecialty and practicing in neurosurgery to understand what he meant by the additional challenges of being a girl child. And in reality, my father was absolutely right. Jamaica has yet to graduate a female neurosurgeon. And yet here I stand, a female neurosurgeon. So dream fulfilled. And I think each of us here today, whether we have children or not, we held a dream for our children and for the children of our families and the children of our communities. We all know that dreams are difficult enough to accomplish, right? That's why we call them dreams, right? Because they're kind of out there. But they are becoming more and more challenging and impossible given the current political and social climate that we are in and the attack on women, okay? All you have to do is turn on the television and turn on the radio. Nonetheless, many of us in this room, in fact, I would say all of us in this room today are examples of what it is to have a dream fulfilled. And so we thank you for taking the time to come out today and join us to honor and to foster the dreams of the kids in our lives, the kids in our communities. This is huge, and we are so grateful that you're joining us on this mission. Additionally, I'm going to ask you to take a moment now to welcome to the stage two of the most amazing women of the community who have benefited and partnered with BGCP in fulfilling their dreams. And they're going to spend some time to you today answering some questions in a panel format. So let's give a round of applause to Nancy and Lindsay, who are going to come up and join us. Lindsay is an alumni of the East Palo Alto Clubhouse. She came to BGCP for about 7 years, and she attended Howard University, historically black college, which is just amazing, and graduated, get this, summa cum laude, with a BS. With a bachelor's in elementary education, and she is now paying it forward and teaching 2nd and 3rd grade math at Center City Public Charter School in Washington, D.C., and came out to join us today. And not to be outdone, Nancy is an alumna of the Redwood City Clubhouse, and she attended the amazing Santa Clara University on a full scholarship, okay? Yes. Nancy epitomizes our theme today, as Nancy is also a dreamer, all right? And she is now working as an immigration counselor at Catholic Charities in Santa Clara County. So, okay, I'm so excited that they're here. I can't believe you guys traveled so far. We barely made it here from Los Altos Hills. But thank you so much. So I just want to ask you guys, this whole theme is about dreaming and dreams of our communities and our kids and stuff. Tell me a little bit about your dreams growing up and what challenges you faced in trying to accomplish them. Nancy, why don't you go first?
So my parents and I immigrated to this country when I was 11 months old. So they left everything behind in Mexico. And we had to start from zero here, right? So my mom cleans houses and my dad works in construction. And when they came to this country, it was a very difficult decision because they left their comfort zone, they left their families, but it was because they wanted to give me, at the time, and then my siblings, a better future and the opportunities that they didn't have in Mexico because they weren't able to finish high school. They had to start working at a very young age in order to be able to support their families. And so when we came to this country, they had this vision and this dream for my siblings and I to be able to graduate from high school, but also attend college and have a career so that we could be self-sufficient, independent women. And so my dream growing up was to, one, make my parents' sacrifices not be in vain, but at the same time, I wanted to be able to take care of them because they had given up so much and sacrificed so much for me to have this opportunity that they didn't have. So when I would go and clean houses with my mom, at a very young age, I sort of envisioned me being able to give my parents a house like the very beautiful homes like the ones that we were cleaning. So that was my dream growing up.
Thank you. How about you, Lindsay? I know your mom's in the audience.
She is. I would say that I didn't really have a dream. I didn't know that I was supposed to have a dream. It's not that there weren't things that I wanted to do, they just weren't important. And I didn't see people, I'm the first in my family to go to college and graduate. So I didn't have a vision of excellence. I didn't have a role model that I saw do these things. So I'm like, I'm supposed to follow in their footsteps. So I didn't have a dream until junior year in high school. So I finally got my life together. And I was at the Boys and Girls Club and my mentor, Sean Mendy, was helping run the College Bound program. And I walked up to him one day and he told me, not asked me, he told me that I was going on a college tour to San Diego. And this was my first and last college tour. But it was really exciting because I hadn't really been out of this small little bubble here. And so to be able to go to San Diego and tour some of the schools was really nice to actually be there and envision myself at the school. And I really fell in love with San Diego State, and I just knew that that's where I was going to go. And I knew that, and I finally had the dream, and I can envision myself doing it and actually being there and getting a college degree because of the relationships that I formed at the Boys and Girls Club and the programs that I was in.
So you got your life together in high school. Yes. How many in the audience have their life together? So we're pretty excited about that. So tell me a little bit about the role that the Boys and Girls Club played in your lives.
Either of us?
Yeah, you were a member for 7 years.
Yes.
And you were a member for 11 years.
Correct. So I joined the Boys and Girls Clubs when I was 6 years old, and I initially started playing sports there, but I eventually transitioned into enrolling in academic programs, and eventually I became an active member in the leadership clubs that the clubhouse has to offer. I also benefited from tutors, and I developed very meaningful relationships with the staff. I gained mentors. One of them, who is actually in the audience today, and I met her here at this very place, at the Circus Club, my junior year in high school. And she played such an important role in helping me apply to college, and also helping me apply for scholarships because I was an undocumented student at the time, or I'm still undocumented, and so I didn't have access to financial aid. So Tracy created this binder. Tracy Kuhn, who is my mentor, created this binder for me with all the scholarships that I was eligible to apply for, so that I could finance my college education. So Boys and Girls Club helped me in many aspects of my life, not just throughout the academic piece of it. She's now a friend that I have incredible and memorable conversations with, and I still spend a lot of time with her because she has served as a great example and role model for me. And the time that we've spent together has made me realize that I can make my dreams come true, and I can achieve what it is that I set my mind to. But I also have to she's helped me create a plan to make those dreams a reality.
Great, thank you. Let me ask you, so you went all the way to DC for school, freezing cold. Tell us a little bit about your transition to college, and what did you take with you from the Boys and Girls Club that you think might have helped in your success?
So originally I said that I wanted to go to San Diego State, and I was gung-ho on San Diego State. But I was also choosing between San Diego State and Howard University. Howard University is an HBCU, which is an historically black college or university. And my mentor, Sean, who I met through the Boys and Girls Club, knew somebody who was in the grad program at Stanford, who I went to Spelman College, which is an HBCU in Atlanta, Georgia. And so I linked up with her, and we had just a short 30-minute lunch. Her name was Nikki Jourdain. And she told me about her experiences in college and being a black woman and being surrounded by women that looked like her from different backgrounds, had different experiences, and they were all just successful, or they were all trying to achieve success and push themselves to their highest potential. And she kept telling me about these stories. I'm like, wow, I can see myself doing that. And she was my first vision of somebody who went to college and had actually went through the motions and came out on top. And so I could see myself doing the same thing. And so it's only 30 minutes, but she convinced me, and after that, I was like, okay, San Diego State is a nice school, but I think the school that'll actually allow me to fulfill my dreams will be Howard University, and so that's how I ended up in freezing DC.
So what dreams remain for you guys?
Okay. Well, I've been very fortunate because as you mentioned earlier, I work as an immigration counselor, so I'm working with a community that I feel really passionate about. But in order to be able to, I guess, finalize that dream, my hope is to go to law school and be an immigration attorney, because that will enable me to help more people in the same field that I'm currently working on, and it would also hopefully give me the financial stability to be able to take care of my parents, because that's always been very important to me.
And this last question is for both of you guys. So we've got about 300 of the most amazing women in Silicon Valley sitting here today. First of all, thank you guys for coming out. And these are, awesome people because they know Dana, Michelle, and myself. Just kidding. But no, so as you reflect on your time in BGCP and growing up, if you could look back on when you were at the clubs, what could we have done for you, and what can we do for the next generation of you?
Kind of like a three-part answer. Definitely allowing young women and all students at the Boys and Girls Club, providing them with experiences and exposures to different career paths. As I mentioned before, I didn't see people in my life being computer engineers or into music or into art. And so going to the Boys and Girls Club and actually seeing people in my community and then people that were visitors and volunteers come in and just give us a glimpse of their life. So just volunteering, even if it's just 30 minutes, if it's 30 minutes of homework tutoring that you can do. I met with Nikki Jourdain for 30 minutes, and she's the one who convinced me to go to Howard. So even if it's 30 minutes and that's all that you can give, just show up and be present. And then secondly, just being very intentional with the language that you use when you're speaking to young girls and ensuring that it's empowering. I was telling Nancy yesterday, actually, that I'm an educator, I'm a teacher, and so I actually stopped my second grade lesson the other day because one of my boys was talking about girl push-ups. And I was like, oh, actually, no, you don't mean girl push-ups, you mean modified push-ups. And then he's showing me the push-up. I'm like, no, it's still a modified push-up. And so my girls are also like, yeah, that's a girl push-up. And at this point, I really took a moment to just disrupt what they believed about what a girl is. Because if you allow students to think that there's a difference between a push-up and a girl push-up, then you're allowing them to think that being a female is inferior. And so when they grow up and they get some position at a tech company and they're at an executive board meeting, they're thinking that what they're about to say, no one's gonna listen to because, oh, I'm a woman in a room full of men, and so my thought is going to be inferior to what they're thinking. So just being very intentional with how you speak to them and being uplifting and being empowering. And you can never be too empowering. And me and Nancy both agree that although there are many organizations that do things to uplift and empower women, we know of one that is, we have personal experience with one that definitely allowed us to have exposure and experiences with successful women from a variety of different backgrounds, and also very intentional with how they speak to us and how we develop interpersonal relationships with our mentors there. And it's the Boys and Girls Club, and you have already given us 2 hours of your time, and it's a phenomenal start. And we would just hope that we'd be able to see all of your faces there as well.
I think with a room filled with these many women, it just goes to show that there's so much potential for every person here to be a leader and to be a good role model, a positive role model for the girls like Lindsay and I at Boys and Girls Club. So like Lindsay said, 2 hours of your time here is a great start, but imagine how much further the time that you spend out with a child in our clubhouse can go. Like I mentioned earlier, Tracy has been such an important role model in my life, and you can be that same mentor or role model for another girl. And if that is too much of a commitment, you can always find an event that you can volunteer at and spend a little bit of time doing that, because we're all busy, right? We all have, you might have kids, you might have a job, a career that you are focused on, but the kids at the club, the kids like us at these clubhouses could benefit from seeing more women in positions of leadership.
Thank you so much. As you can see, they're absolutely amazing. Please let's thank them once again for joining.